today's lesson is titled Division as Repeated Subtraction. Go ahead and write the title at the top of your page. The objective today, which is what you will be able to do by the end of this lesson, is I will model and record division as repeated subtraction. Model means we're going to be using pictures to model division problems, and we are going to be using repeated subtraction. If you remember when we talked about multiplication, multiplication is repeated addition. So then, since division is the inverse operation of multiplication, the way to figure out division would be repeated subtraction. So write the following problem in your notes. A can of tennis balls holds 3 balls. How many cans are needed to hold 45 tennis balls? If I use the cubes method, I'm first going to circle the key numbers. Well, that would be 3 and 45. Then I'm going to underline the question, which is how many cans are needed to hold 45 tennis balls? Next would be to box keywords. Now, in this particular problem, there is no keywords to directly tell you exactly what to do, so you have to look at the words that are in the question. And since it says how many cans are needed to hold 45 tennis balls, hold tells you that you're going to be placing them into groups, so it might be division. Then we're going to eliminate any numbers that are not needed, which in this case we need to use both 3 and 45. And the last step is to solve. Now there are 2 ways to solve this problem. One way is to draw a picture, which we've done before. So first off, I'm going to draw how many I have total, so that would be 45. So I'm going to draw 45 tennis balls. Then I'm going to group up every 3 tennis balls to see how many groups I'll have. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So that means that there would be 15 cans that can hold 45 tennis balls. Now, besides drawing a picture, another way is to use repeated subtraction. So just like addition, or just like multiplication, you can use repeated addition. So in this case, you're going to continue to subtract 3 until you get to 0. So I'm going to start with how many I have total, which is 45. Then I'm going to continue to subtract 3 until I get to 0. Now, instead of counting up every single 3 and figuring out how many there are, I could group the 3s into easy numbers to add. So multiples of 10, so 10 is an easy number to add. So if I count down 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So here, if I have 10 3s, then I have used up 30 of the tennis balls. Well, if there are 45 and I've used up 30 to this point, that means I still have 15 left to use. So I continued to subtract 3. If I count how many 3s I have here, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that means I have 5 groups of 3, which is 15. Well, 15 minus 15 is 0. So now I know that I have 15 3s that I had to subtract to get to 0. So that means that it would be 15 cans are needed to hold 45 tennis balls. The following problem says a certain bird feeder holds 6 cups of bird feeder. How many times can this bird feeder be filled using a 72 cup bag of birdseed? If I use the cubes method, first I'm going to circle the key numbers, which would be 6 and 72. Then I'm going to underline the question, which says how many times can this bird feeder be filled using a 72 cup bag of bird feeder? I'm then going to box keywords. Now this at times is a keyword to say multiplication, but really they're asking how many times are you going to take your cup and fill up a bird feeder. So actually this is going to be division. The last one is eliminate, which we don't have any numbers to eliminate. And then we're going to solve. Now in the previous question, we used repeated subtraction to answer it. And when we did that, we started with with the large number that we started with and kept subtracting 3 until we got to 0. Well, that can take a really long time. So one way to speed the process up is to think about how many of that number can you subtract altogether. So if I'm going to start with, if I look at the problem, I'm going to start with a 72 cup bag of birdseed. So if I look here, I'm starting with 72. Now I think I'm going to be subtracting 6 until I get to 0. But I need to ask myself if I think that there are more than 10 sixes in 72. And if I look, well, 10 sixes would be 60. So if I did 10 sixes, I'm going to subtract 60 from 72, which leaves me with 12 left to subtract. Well, I know that 12 is a multiple of 6 because if I count by 6, I'll count twice before I get to 12. So I know if I have two groups of 6, that's 12. So if I minus 12, then I get to 0. Well, then I take the two numbers. I had 10 groups of 6 and 2 groups of 6. I add those together. So my question asks, how many times can this feeder be filled using a 72 cup bag of birdseed? Well, 10 plus 2 is 12, so it would be 12 times. So if you turn in your books to page 270 and look at question 1, the question says 48 divided by 4, and you're going to use repeated subtraction. So if I'm going to start with the large number of 48. Now I could continue to just subtract 4, keep subtracting 4 until I get to 0, but that's going to take a long time. So first I'm going to erase that. I'm going to think, is there 10 groups of 4? Is that fewer than 48? Well, 10 groups of 4, if I do that, 10 times 4, well, that equals 40. So I can subtract. So what's 48 minus 40, which would be 8. So I now still have 8 to subtract. So right now I've subtracted 10 4s. Now I have to think of how many 4s are in 8. Well, there are 2 groups of 4 that are in 8. So now I can subtract 8 to get to 0. So if I look at the 10 and the 2 and I add them together, it would be 12. 12 would be my answer. Not 12 times, but 12.